Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Love Self-Care System Conversations with Experts. In this month's episodes, we have the Hay House author Cara Wheatley-McGrain. Cara has written a book called Calm Your Gut that discusses issues around IBD, IBS, ulcerative colitis and chronic disease. She has lots of wisdom to share in these interviews. There are going to be 2 this month, and I'm hoping that if any of you do suffer with any of these conditions, you'll have a little listen, because she's very frank and open and shares lots of information that may help you with things that you've been maybe battling with yourself. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into our interview with Cara. Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Love Self-Care System Conversations with Experts. Today I have the author of Calm Your Gut, Cara Wheatley-McGrain. Cara has written this book, which is a mindful and compassionate guide to healing IBD and IBS. Cara is the founder of the Mindful Gut UK, a mindset and compassion coach and an educational consultant. She's an expert patient who's lived with IBD and IBS for 20 years. Hello, Cara. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
I'm really happy to be here, and I always love talking about self-care and self-love, so I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation.
Excellent. Cara, my first question is, firstly, what I want to say is what you've said in your book, what you've shared with all of us. I am so grateful for it, and your honesty in the book as well. It's made me feel a lot better. I mean, I don't have IBD, IBS, Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, but it really helped me to think about my own health just in general. So that was really lovely. So my first question that I want to ask is, what was it like when you first engaged with this healing process? Was there a part of you that was slightly resistant to it initially?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think we're complex, aren't we? I think as human beings, and there's parts of us that are really receptive to healing and ready to heal and want to heal. And then maybe there's parts of us that can feel a little bit stuck, can feel a little bit like resistant, or maybe struggle to envision the possibility of health because they kind of get so used to the pattern of being ill. So I think we are. I continue my journey of healing. I don't, I continue. It's a living process for me. So I'm always continuing doing the inner work, continuing understanding myself and the different parts of me. I think that's a really important part of the share, actually, even as a coach and someone who's written a book, is that the work continues, that the self-compassion, the self-care, the self-love, it's a lifelong journey, and you'll know that yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So how old were you when you actually paid attention to the fact that there was something happening within you that was making life harder for you?
It's really interesting that I would recognize that my gut health issues started when I was really young. I think I was about 7, 8, 9 when I noticed I actually had issues with digestion, but I wouldn't have known that was different from anyone else. I was just like, I would actually go to parties when I was at primary school, and I remember my mom, I could say to my mom, I can't drink fizzy drink. It makes me feel uncomfortable in my stomach. I get bloated. I feel really uncomfortable. I don't like it. I recognize that. I knew that I had some issues with eating sandwiches. So I'd go to parties with a little bit of anxiety, like as a little kid going, most of the things, like all the grown-ups be like, eat the sandwiches before you have the chocolates and I'd be like, oh, I don't know. And then, pouring the Coca-Cola in the drinks. And actually I couldn't fully articulate it, but I just knew that it wasn't quite working for me. And then into my teens, my anxiety and my gut health, and I know the two are linked.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah.
very closely linked, continued to be a concern. And then obviously I share the story in my book. I was diagnosed at university, and then things moved very quickly, and I ended up hospitalized with a state, my colon in such an inflamed state that the consultant wanted to remove it, operate to remove it.
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. Because I think when I was reading your book, one of the things that I thought was it takes a lot of guts
to come out and say, it's true, right? It's true. It's like me, I have to have a lot of heart, right? And I was born with a heart condition. So it takes a lot of guts to say, this is me and this is what I'm having to go through. And I think that's, it must have been so tough for you to sort of have to sort of stand back and go, okay, this is it. This is who I have to be now. This is how I have to think now. I have to look after myself in this way, because for many people, that whole self-care thing can get put on the back burner because of life being such a big, it's a big ask, isn't it? It asks so much of us with this kind of go, go, go. And you do mention that in the book about how life's expecting so much of us, but when you have these kind of issues, then anxiety does peak, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that part about it takes guts. I think it takes guts to talk about chronic health conditions. And I'm talking about when I was diagnosed 20 years ago, there weren't many people talking about it. There wasn't the kind of social media presence that there is today.
Yeah.
And I feel it's a wonderful time to be talking more openly about chronic health conditions, and also talking about the holistic picture and empowering people to think about what's in their power, what's in their gift to maybe support their healing. And I'm also want to be really clear. I'm a real advocate. We're very lucky to live in a culture where we have great scientific knowledge and understanding, and we have access to incredible medication, and that plays a role for many people living with a chronic condition. But there's also the part of understanding the holistic bit, the bit around what the actions we take each day, what we eat, how we sleep, how we find balance, how we address our anxiety and the pressures of the world that we live in, the environment that we live in. And those things can be a really significant part of our healing journey. And it's how do we find that balance point for ourselves between maybe the Western approach of medication or surgery or whatever it might be, which is a gift. It's wonderful that we have access to this, but also the holistic picture, the part around that inner journey of self-care and balance, and how we approach that.
Yeah, it's so true. Because of the way I think, and I think very much like you on this. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm very much about that. It's about you and everything outside of you. And I'm very much like you. And I think, yes, the medical profession can help us, but we also have to be very self-informed as well. And I think that's, I love that you said that, because it's so true. And I think one of the bigger parts of learning at the moment with healing is that development of that understanding that it's about fusing and playing together, rather than the medical profession doing everything and us taking no responsibility for ourselves. So yeah, I do love that. So okay, so my next question is, so starting on your journey and during the time when you did it, there was all this invisibility around these chronic illnesses. So with things like Crohn's disease, which I didn't know really about until fairly recently myself, because one of my family members has it, but I didn't know about that. I knew about IBD and IBS and ulcerative colitis, but I hadn't heard of Crohn's disease before. So around that time, because you were starting with this invisibility of what it was like, how were you able to sort of navigate the conversations that you needed to have at the time?
I actually think, honestly, with quite a lot of difficulty. I look back and I think it was really challenging. And as part of the book, I interviewed a lot of people who live with chronic gut conditions, IBD and IBS. I spoke to a lot of people because I felt that was an important part of the research, because obviously I know my personal experience really well. And I spoke to some really brave and really beautiful people who have had, all sorts of different outcomes living with chronic gut conditions like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, including people who've had surgery as well. And I think talking to people younger than me and also in my age group and older, what was really interesting is the aftercare, like 20 years ago, for some people who had surgery, was really, there wasn't necessarily the understanding of the kind of counselling and even the level of trauma that people might have by having quite severe, serious surgery at a very young age. So I found talking to people very powerful. I think and then it made me realise, wow, it's so important that we are you know, that, and by offering the book out into the world, I'm offering people the opportunity
That's
to be
great.
open. And I realized, actually talking to some people shared with me, actually, this is the first time I've really spoken about it properly with someone. This is the first time. And that was quite profound as well, because creating an environment where people feel heard, where they feel compassionately understood, is a powerful thing in itself. So I would say, looking back, I was brave and I was stubborn, but I was also scared. You know, that was all going on. And so I look back with compassion at the young woman who was trying to make sense. And I couldn't just Google it. I couldn't just, there weren't social media groups. There was, it was a different era. It's quite amazing to think about that we didn't have, Instagram lives on all that stuff we have today. But equally, because there wasn't that, I had to go inward. I had to connect with my own intuition. I had to trust my gut instincts. And I think there was a point you were making earlier on about Western medicine and responsibility. And there's a part of that also about claiming our power, claiming our wisdom, our intuition, our bodies have a lot of wisdom. They want to be well. So tuning into that can be quite powerful as well.
Yeah, it's just, it's so amazing, because it's like, it brings me to sort of feminine issues and stuff, and how, like with IBD, IBS and that, and people don't want to talk about it. It's the same with feminine issues. People don't want to talk about it. And we are only now moving into an age where people are getting a bit more vocal about these things. And as you say, Cara, it really is because of social media, and it's given us this power to speak up. But I think it's so important, because before, like you said, some people were first time speaking about it. People were hiding things. And even me, myself, I remember stuff I went through when I was younger. I wouldn't speak about it. I'd find different ways of masking what it was, so people didn't know what was really happening. So I do, I think it's amazing. And I love that you brought this book out, because it stands there and says, look, it's fine to speak about this. It's fine to ask for help. It's fine to create your own community around this. Because I think that's so important. I mean, I say it so much with self-love as well. I say, don't be afraid of yourself, because it's yourself that's living with that, and that pain maybe, or that illness, or, stepping into that. So yeah, I love that. I love what you said. Okay, so I want to move to stress. Okay, so let's talk about stress. And in the book, you mentioned Thomas Merton, saying, sort of alluding to modern living as being a form of violence. So do you think then that we take that form of violence into our bodies?
I think there's something really powerful about the way that we are living today. I mean, and I think, as I say that, there are so many wonderful aspects of contemporary society: the choice, the freedom, the flexibility of movement, all of the things that we have. But there's also the sense of often feeling disconnected. I think we can feel very disconnected from our natural environment. And it's relatively recent, this is relatively recent changes for human beings who've been evolving over thousands of years, that we are often, in front of our little computers doing our Zoom calls and our laptops and working away, and often not spending much time outside in the natural environment where we need to be. And I think our physiology was designed for moments of intense stress and then periods of real relaxation. So, literally the tiger coming out of, to attack us, or the saber-toothed tiger arriving, the adrenaline response, the triggers to go, to escape, to fight, flight, freeze. And then to actually find calm, to drop from our sympathetic nervous system responding so dramatically into our parasympathetic nervous system, and that inner calm, and that rest and digest, tend and befriend system. But obviously in our modern day culture, in our modern day society, we can just get an email pinging onto our phone at any time of day.
Ping, ping, ping.
We can be stressed by being, in close proximity to people, maybe feeling a bit confined, maybe not being able to follow our natural instincts. to want to spend more time outside and to be in the natural environment, sunlight, fresh air, green spaces. And I think these can cause a kind of low level chronic stress response. And some of us are more sensitive. I would say I am somebody who's more sensitive to that. I think you probably would say to him that you're someone who's sensitive to stress, who's aware of that. And I think if you're more sensitive to it, you're more aware of its impact on yourself physically and emotionally. But I think it's true for everybody. I think we're all maybe more or less aware of that low level chronic stress. And stress doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I think a certain amount of stimulation or stress can be very helpful. It can support us to change and challenge us. But when it's that low level kind of chronic ongoing, I think it has a link to low level inflammation.
Yeah, I agree.
In the body. And we know there's a close relationship between our gut brain axis and the relationship between how our gut responds to the brain and vice versa. So yes, I think that part of that beautiful Thomas Merton quote is really about actually our modern day society can create a kind of an aggression, a kind of low level stress that we sometimes aren't even aware of because we could become so used to it.
Yeah, it's like that because it's that drip effect of stress. I've written about it in a blog before. It's not the same as the kind of stress that was the one that we were talking about where we get that time to rest and repair, right? It's that drip effect, and you don't notice it. So you're actually constantly in a kind of low level type of stress. And the other thing about when you were saying about going outdoors, the kids now don't even go out much. You know, when I was a child, and I'm hoping you did too, we used to go and play outside. And I've even said play outside, so you can really tell my age. But, you know, we used to go out. We've become a culture of staying indoors and being, like you said, behind screens. And a comment I did want to make about something you just said that's in your book, which I really love. I love it so much. You talked about the PNS system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And you said about the sympathetic nervous system, and you said unsympathetic. And I loved it. I've wanted that so much. So I want to say that. Because I remember when I was training in yoga and my tutor was talking about the PNS and the sympathetic, and I was like, it's not sympathetic. So yeah, I do love unsympathetic nervous system, but also you can understand it a bit better because I always used to not be able to remember which was which because sympathetic sounds like it's kind.
Yeah. I love that you get that. Not everyone's picked up on that, but I love that it resonates with you.
I put a big heart next to it. So yes, I love this. Okay, now we're moving on to the fun part. Well, I call it the fun part because this is just questions about Cara.
Oh, right. Okay, go for it.
So, what is your favourite film?
A lovely film, A Beautiful Life, and it's an Italian film. It's set during World War II. I also love E.T.
Okay.
Like I love E.T. Like that's absolute childhood classic for me. I'm going to choose that because I know that for sure. I mean, it's brilliant. I love that. I love the whole premise of it, and I think it's a brilliant childhood film. So yeah, I'll choose that one.
You can still have Beautiful Life too.
Yeah, I have Beautiful Life. It's slightly more heavy because it's set during a concentration camp, but it's beautifully done. It's actually a beautiful film. It's not that dark, but people might think it's dark from how I describe it, but it's beautiful.
Well, it says beautiful. I think we learn a lot from these things. What is your favourite fiction book?
I would think I would choose a book by Matt Haig, who I love. This is difficult because I've read a lot. The Matt Haig book, How to Stop Time. But that's a difficult choice because there's so many I'm thinking of. But I love it. It's about, I'm not going to give too much away, but it's a book about looking at time from a completely different perspective. It's really well written. I love Matt Haig's work. He's a really deep thinker. I think if I had to choose, that's the one. But there's a fair few seconds and thirds I would want to put as well.
You're just like me when it comes to books. We just read so much. Yeah, I might have a look at that because I've never read it. What about your favourite non-fiction book?
That's a really difficult one. I'm reading a really incredible book at the moment, so I'm going to choose it. But I have read so many amazing and inspiring books. Part of me is tempted to choose something by Louisa Hay because she was my starting point into kind of my spiritual life. There's a book I'm reading at the moment by quite an incredible therapist called Richard Schwartz, and it's called No Bad Parts. And it's a beautiful book. It's a book around really understanding our inner world, and it's a really quite a radical way of looking at the parts of ourselves we might normally reject. So I highly recommend it. He's a therapist. He started something called Internal Family Systems about 30 years ago, and he's I think quite an incredible guy. So I would recommend that for anyone who's interested. It's quite a deep book, but if someone's interested, yeah.
That sounds so interesting. I'm intrigued myself. I love doing these questions because I learn stuff and I then go and seek out these books or seek out films. Okay, Cara, thank you so much. It's been an I absolutely loved having you here. I've loved having you here. I've loved this conversation. Cara, if people want to find you, what are your handles? If you could just say them for me, that'd be really lovely. I will put them down in the notes in YouTube. It'd be lovely if you could tell us where we could find you.
Yeah, so I've actually got carawheatley-McGrain.com. They can find me there. My company is called the Mindful Gut UK, so they can find me there too. And I'm on Instagram, Mindful Gut UK. I've got a Facebook group, the Mindful Gut UK. And I don't tend to use Twitter so much, but they can find me there as well. And yes, I'm always, obviously it gives me so much joy, Hem, to talk about self-care, self-compassion, and that whole piece around self-love and how we can take care of ourselves. So it's a real joy to talk to you today as well.
Oh, thank you for coming. I've really enjoyed having you here. Everyone, you know where you can find me. You can find me at the Self-Love Self-Care Angel System on Facebook, the Self-Love Self-Care Coaching System on Facebook, and my website, which is www.selfloveselfcaresystem.com. Thank you all for watching. It's been wonderful to have you. I will see you all soon. Namaste, take care. Goodbye from me. And
goodbye from me.
Mwah. All my love. Bye.
Thank you for watching the interview. I hope you enjoyed all that wisdom that Cara had to offer. Calm Your Gut can be purchased if you want it. Just have a look online. There's lots of availability. It is published by Hay House as well, so just in case you wanted to know that. There was lots of interesting stuff, and there's more next week. So Cara's next interview will be published on Friday. I hope that you will be available to see it. It isn't obviously live or anything. It will be published on the Friday. So do take a look. There's lots more information. She's going to be talking about stress and about the body and how we as human beings respond to our own health issues. Once again, thank you so much for watching the interview. It was an absolute pleasure. I want to say in this moment, thank you to Cara for coming. It was lovely to have her guest. And as I say, if you would like the book, please have a look for it. Everyone take care of yourselves. Namaste, and I will speak to you soon. Bye bye.